بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة والتسليم على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم المصطفى الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما والحمد لله على كل حال. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم إني أعوذ بك أن أضل أو ضل أو زل أو زل أو أظلم أو أظلم أو أجهل أو يجهل علي. So please excuse me, I was tardy and the traffic wasn't cooperating. Yeah, we live in Southern California. All right, so we are talking today about quwwat al-shahwa, or that power of passion, that power of desires that is in us, that we're born with, and ultimately that we have to overcome if we're going to draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Like, that's really what we're talking about. We're really talking about drawing near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? That's what we're talking about. So every one of us, sooner or later in your life, you have to say, you know, what am I here for? Like, what is this all about? Where am I going? Everybody has to ask himself or herself this question. Everyone. And eventually, if you just keep boiling it down, right? You keep boiling it down. You keep asking yourself these hard questions, hard questions, hard questions. What am I here for? What is this all about? What happens in the end, right? What will be important to me in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years? These are very hard questions. And you should come, if you're not deluded, you'll come to some authentic answers. And those authentic answers will guide you to that which is everlasting. It will guide you to that which is forever. But you have to ask those hard questions. And as soon as you start, so then when you say, okay, you know, what is everlasting? Okay, al-akhirah. And even in akhirah, you say, how do I want my state to be there? Right, when I die and I go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, do I want to be those, do I want to be of those who are just forgiven? Right, okay, they're forgiven. Right? But they're at a distance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or do you want to be min al-muqarrabeen? You want to be of those who are drawn near and you have rank with Allah? Then you got to get busy. You've got to get busy. And then, so what is getting busy? So you have to begin to remove the dense veils. These are just like dense, they're just like, you know, we're in the class on fiqh, we're talking about tahara. Well, we haven't begun to talk about this yet, but we're talking about tahara. There's a difference between light filth and heavy filth. There's a difference. Light filth is like, right? Light filth is like filth that comes from animals, right? Especially pure animals. All they eat is grass, right? And so their filth is not like heavy, okay? I mean, it's filth nevertheless. But it's not like human defecation who's eating meat and all of these different things, or animals that eat meat, okay? So there's a difference between like feces that come from animals that eat meat and feces that comes from birds. There's a difference. Sins are the same way, and veils are the same way. The worst veil that a human being can have is the veil of shirk. You're far, far, far away if you associate partners with God. You're far away. You're far, far, far away if you associate partners with God. Okay? He's one. He has no partner. Once you remove that from you, you've gotten rid of the greatest veil between you and Allah, the greatest barrier. You have unlocked the lock. You have unlocked it. But then you still have to go about removing those veils, right? There's other veils, like major sins. And then those sins fall into certain categories. And those categories have roots. That's where we're at. The roots of all sins is here. It's either in the power of anger, the power of passion, right? Or the power of intellect. All right? So you have to go about removing these veils. After you remove those veils, then you have subtle veils. They're even more subtle. For example, sincerity. Okay? Sincerity. Like, how do you be totally sincere with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You have to work hard at this. You have to work hard. And you have to constantly be in a state of muhasabah. Constantly checking. Why am I doing this? What do I expect to get from this? Right? It's not a dense veil. It's not heavy like, associating partners with Allah or theft or oppression. It's not like that. It's much more subtle. And you have to track it down. You have to catch it. Like a cloud almost. Like, how do I get this and get rid of it? Okay? Like, this is what we're talking about. I know, I went over some of the diseases that come from being overwhelmed with our passions. Let me say this. When you decide to draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first thing you have to remove from yourself are characteristics that are like animals. Right? We talked about anger. There are some animals that are very vicious. They're very vicious. They have no mercy. You don't want to be like that. That's a huge veil between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we're not talking about anger, we're talking about quwwat shahwa, passions, desires. And all of these things come natural to us. Eating, sleeping, right? The sexual appetite. It comes natural. But it should not rule you. It should not overcome you. So as soon as you say, I want to draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to look inwardly and you have to say, what's driving me more than the commands of Allah? What is influencing me more than the commands of Allah? Is it my laziness? Is it my heedlessness? Is it my greed? Right? Do I just love to have fun? You have to do muhasabah. You have to take account of yourself. You have to take account of yourself. And if that's difficult, then get an honest friend who will evaluate you correctly. Okay? So these are some of the other diseases that you'll find if a person is overcome by their shahwat, by their passions, or they're overwhelmed by their desires. You'll see that they are wasteful. Wasteful. Okay? They will insist on committing sins while hoping for the forgiveness of Allah. They will continue, they will go on, right? They will go on saying, no, Allah will forgive me, Allah will forgive me. There's an explicit hadith about this. Explicit. Where the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, this person is a fool. He goes on, he's committing sins, committing sins. And he never says, I need to get myself together. Otherwise, I could be punished. Okay? Excessive laughter, mirth. Excessive. It's not talking about not having good times sometimes, that, right? It's talking about excessively being indulged in that. Right? Wasting time. Procrastination. Then this is talking about things that are things that are important. You understand? The passions have completely overcome this person. All right? The love of desires. The love of desires. Wrongdoing or desiring that which is wrong. And we had people that came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's a hadith in the Musnad of Imam Ahmed. I think I told you all this before. There's a hadith in the Musnad of Imam Ahmed where there was a young man. Okay? Young man, which is important because this is when your desires are the strongest. They're the strongest. You want what you want. And you're willing to do whatever you want to get what you want. So a young man came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was surrounded by his companions, and they said, and the young man came and he came and he asked for permission for zina, fornication. He asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for permission. And the companions around Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were like, meh. Like, shut up. You don't have any shame? Be quiet. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam understood his condition and he wanted to help him with his condition. So he brought him close. He told him, come close. And then, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam started to ask him, do you have a mother? He said, yes. He said, would you like someone to do that with your mother? Right? To be with her with no marriage ties, no responsibility. In essence is what he's asking. Would you like someone to be like that with your mother? And the man said, no. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, other people are like that. They don't want you being with their mother, their daughter, their sister, right? They don't want that. And then he began to ask him, what about you have an aunt? Yes. Would you want someone to do that with your aunt? No. And he went through all of the female relatives. You want someone to do that with your sister? You want someone to do that with your mother? You want someone to do that with your aunt? Other people are like that. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made dua for him. When the man left him and he went back out into the streets of Medina, he passed by a girl that he used to play the game with. And she was calling him. And he didn't go to her, but he just responded to her. And he was basically saying, listen, that's over. And the end of the hadith, he says, before I entered into the presence of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, fornication was the most beloved thing to me. But by the time I left him, it became the most hated thing to me. There's a lot of wisdoms that we can take from this hadith. But my point is, he came overwhelmed, overcome by his passions. Completely overtaken by his passions. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he just used motivational interviewing. He just asked him a series of questions, that would help him to come to the right conclusion without beating him over the head about, you say this to the Messenger of Allah. Allah says in the Quran, the hadith says. He didn't do none of that. He just dealt with him where he was. He dealt with the young man where he was. And so this is an example of, someone, they're overcome by their passions. They're completely overcome. And we're talking about in the place, the city's filled with purified people. Filled. And this young man had not reached that state. So what about the time we're in? Which is why this science is so important. It's so important because it's just, you got to overcome yourself. This is the greatest enemy you're going to have. This is the greatest enemy you're going to have, yourself. And what you have to do, just step by step, you don't look at people around you. You don't look at them and say, oh, they're praying and they're doing this, they're doing that. No. You look at yourself and you try to be better today than you were yesterday. That's it. You are your greatest opponent. You. Try to be better tomorrow than you were today. Just make that intention. I want to do more, even if it's just a little bit. But it takes humility. It takes, an honest assessment of yourself. Like, where are you really at? Where are you really at when it comes to anger and all of the branches of anger, passion and all of the branches of passion, intellect and all of those branches, right? Like, you have to use your intellect to lie. You have to use your intellect to lie, to deceive, to exaggerate. You have to use your intellect for that. And so if you find something's wrong in this area, fix it. Do better tomorrow than you did today. Do better today than you did yesterday. And if you can't find yourself to do better, at least ask Allah for forgiveness. Okay? All right. So what I want to do is I just want to give you some of these hadith. I mentioned a couple of ayats of Quran last week. So I want to just give you some of these hadith from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the passions, about being deceived. All right? Being deceived. Okay, so you just in the same way, hawa, right? Like hawa it's another word for wind. And just like the wind is blowing hard, it blinds you. You can't see. That's why people who ride a motorcycle, they put on glasses. Or our brother here, he rides the bike. Where's the bike? Oh, it's back there? Okay. When you ride the bike, if you're going fast, you're going real fast, the tears are coming out of your eyes. You can't really see that well. Hawa is the same thing, but it's blowing in your soul and it blinds you spiritually. So you can't see. It blinds you spiritually. All right? And that's why, but the catch is, it's natural. You're born with it. That's the catch. And that's why I'm saying you have to wrestle with yourself. You're wrestling with yourself. And you know what I mean? You're wrestling. Shaitan does not come to you with something that's not already with you. He comes to you with something that's already there. He whispers to you, what did he say in the Quran? I only whispered to you what you wanted in the first place. He's not coming to you with something far left, far right. He's coming to you with that which is already in you. That's why you have to wrestle with you. Shahadana. We talked about this. Right? Shahadana. Okay? Shahwa. The passions. Hawa. I'm sorry. Shaitan. Nam? Yes, nafs. Shaitan. Hawa. Dunya. Nafs.
Is haya and hawa?
No, hawa.
Hawa, they're different.
Yes. Haya is modesty. Right? Haya. Haya. Right? Or hayat, life. Right? But hawa, Passion. Passion. Desire. Right? Love of the world. I want it. I gotta have it. I can't control myself. Give me more. Whatever, you know what I mean? Normally, it's talking about, it's one of two things. It's talking about something bodily desire, or some type of delusion that you have. Delusion. Okay? I'll give you an example. In this country, the country was founded. This country was founded on a huge delusion that one race was better than another one. Who believes that? They have a terrible, terrible hawa. Terrible. They are deluded. They are deluded. It's a huge veil in their heart if they have that. And that's the reason why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Abu Dar called Bilal radiallahu an, when he said, "Oh, son of a black woman," right? And he was purposely like trying to put him down. Radiallahu anhum, because he rectified that. But it's a lesson for us. Bilal went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "This man said this to me." And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam confronted him about that, and he said, "What? What did he say? What did he say to him?" He said, "I see you still have jahiliyyah in you. Jahiliyyah, ignorance. You're deluded. You don't understand." It's a delusion. If you think the color of your skin, the language you speak, the place you're born, if you think that, you're deluded. That's part of hawa. If you think that this life is better than the next life, you're deluded. You see, it's either something that you don't see correctly because the heart is blind. The heart doesn't comprehend correctly. Okay? Or your appetites are out of control. Your appetites are out of control. It could be eat less, sleep less, talk less, associating with people less. Right? These are some of the cures. Right? Some of the cures. Eat less. That's why we fast on Ramadan. Sleep less. This is what tahajjud is for. Right? Talk less. We have a whole science. There's a whole other subject. Maharam al-lisan. Prohibitions of the tongue. What you cannot say. If you read this book, it will blow you away, because we make these mistakes all the time. But that's a different topic. Right? But it's part of purification of the heart though too. Right? Because a lot of times the things that we say comes from where? Hawa. Right? We can't bite our tongue. Somebody makes us mad. We just go off. All right? We want to say something wrong. We, just can't let it go. Okay. All right? So look at some of these hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? Allah. Aisha radiallahu anha, al-Mu'minun, mother of the believers, Aisha radiallahu anha, she relates from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he said, "This world is a home for those who feel homeless." This world is the world for those who feel homeless, because they have forgotten where they came from. Right? They have forgotten where they came from. So they tried to make this the ultimate abode. They have forgotten where they came from. The world is wealth for fools who have forgotten that they possess the treasures of their Lord. Rasulullah is talking about delusion here. You are deluded, you have forgotten. You're in a state of ignorance. The fool passes his life gathering the goods of this world, which will never be his, but will stay in the world, will stay with the world. That was recorded by Imam Ahmed. What? That cuts to the chase. That cuts to the chase. We try to make this place permanent. Why? We have a misunderstanding. We forgot where we came from. We forgot where we came from. That's why everybody, when someone dies, we have to remind ourselves. What do we say? MashaAllah. To Allah we belong. And to Allah we must return. Don't forget. You got to go back. And you can't take nothing with you. Nothing with you. Your house, your car, your money, nothing. The pharaohs tried it. Right? And what? Right? People still stealing from them. People still taking it from the tombs. You can't take it with you. You can't take it with you. All right? Okay. This is from Ibn Umar, radiyallahu an, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, what a man receives from this world only decreases his value in the opinion of Allah, even if he is good and pious. Unless, everybody's waiting for that part, I know. Okay, but just contemplate on that. The more you get, the more, no? You better, right? You better. The more you get, the more you accumulate and you acquire, and you just hold on to it, your rank, it lowers in the sight of Allah. And now we have the exception. What's the exception? Unless he spends it according to Allah's will and for His sake. You have to. You got to take care of people. You have to take care of people. You know, the Muslim community in this country is one of the wealthiest communities in this country. We should have hospitals. We should be taking care of everybody. I have a man at my job, non-Muslim, and he knows a lot of Muslims. He knows a lot of Muslims. But one day, after he's been around us for about 5 months, he just looked at me and he said, because, Muslims are coming in and out, and he sees non-Muslims and Muslims coming in and out of the building. Non-Muslims, Muslims coming in and out of the building. And he says to me, man, this is the first time that I have ever seen a Muslim organization that helps non-Muslims. That hurt me when he said that. I took it personal because you know what? He's right. We don't do enough to help outside of the Muslim community. We don't. And we should. Because those people that you help, they will defend you. If someone comes and says, oh, those are Muslims. Muslims, they're terrorists, No. Everyone who has benefited from Muslims, they'll say, nah. I work at a Muslim organization, it ain't like that. Nah. I go to the soup kitchen every day, it ain't like that. Right? Help people. We have a lot of wealth. Believe me what I'm telling you, we have a lot of wealth. Some of the wealthiest people in California are Muslims. Billionaires. Not millionaires, billionaires. Muslims. We have to do more. We have to do more. Okay? This is what this hadith is pointing to. Okay? You have to help people. Rasulullah Islam used to do it. His next door neighbor in Medina was a Jew. And he would make sure that he was taken care of. Read the hadith. When the Christians came to Medina, Rasulullah SAW allowed them to pray in his masjid for 3 days before they started discussing religion. Read the tradition. When the deputation from Najran, when they came, they heard about, oh, who's this messenger and this and that. And this. They came. Who are you? What are you saying? Right? He hosted them, treated them with respect. It's important. We have to do the same thing. All right? Okay. And that hadith is recorded by Ibn Abi Dunya. Okay. Anas bin Malik. Remember, he's the young man. He grew up in the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He lived in the house the whole time. For the whole 10 years Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Medina, he lived with him. He lived with him in the house. So all of his hadith are always like very intimate. Okay? This is what he said. Anas bin Malik, he relates, radiallahu an, he relates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, have you ever seen someone who could walk in water and keep his feet dry? The one who treads in the swamp of this world is also like that. He is covered with the mud of sin, cannot keep himself clean. That's recorded by Imam al-Bayhaqi. Rasulullah SAW compared this world to a swamp. Anybody been down south in a swampy area? When it's wet, right? And everything just clings to your shoes. Your shoes, after you walk through it, your shoes are like 10 pounds a piece. That's what he's talking about. Do you understand? Like, this is why you have to give zakat. This is why. Zakat is purification of your wealth. Purification. You have to give out. Because even if you didn't commit any sins in earning it, you might have some greed that makes you want to keep it. You don't want to help anyone. You don't want to give anybody any money. You don't want to spend any money to help anyone. So you have to, at the end of the year, you have to give some of that up. It's purification for you, purification for your money. Do you know that this is the reason why the descendants of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam cannot accept zakat? Why? Why can they not accept zakat? The descendants of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they can accept sadaqah, but they cannot accept zakat. Why? Someone tell me.
Wouldn't it be like eating your own filth and you're trying to purify it?
MashaAllah. She's right. When you give in zakat, we're not talking about sadaqah. We're talking about what is obligatory upon you once a year. Okay? You have to pay zakat once a year. All right? If you have a certain amount of money saved up, right now it's about $6,500. If you have that saved up over a year and you don't have any debt, then you have to pay a portion of that to the poor. But it's called zakat. It's from the same word as tazkiyah, which means to purify. The descendants of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that money is, you're spending your money to purify your wealth, to purify the filth. Okay? And they don't consume filth, because Allah said in the Quran that He wanted to purify the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wanted to purify the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One day we'll talk more about that. Okay? But this is So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's basically saying that it's hard to be in the world and deal in the world without falling into its muck. You get sucked in to the swamp. All right? So the more you indulge in the world, the more the heart becomes blind, the more the veils become between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's all based upon how much you're dealing in the world. How much. Okay? And so you have to, sooner or later, you have to start cutting down. You walk, 10 shows on Netflix yesterday. Tomorrow, just do 9. Just 9. Right? Until eventually you wean off, like wean off. Alright? It will have no value. Yawm al-Qiyamah. You'll regret it. You'll wish, what did I do? Alright? Spend some time donating. Like, alhamdulillah, some of these brothers came and helped that Sahaba initiative, help give them food. It's important. Alright? Okay. Alright. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu related that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the one who loves this world, hubb dunya. And most of the ulama, they say that hubb dunya is the root of all the diseases of the heart. The root. It's only because of love of the world and even love of your position in the world, okay, that's connected to it. Because that's what makes us say, who do you think you're talking to? That's what makes us say that. You know who I am? You may not say it, but you express it in some way. Talking to you. Thank you. So you love what you think your position is. And they say this is the root of all the diseases of the heart. Okay? So he says, the one who loves this world loses the hereafter. Okay? The one who is concerned with the hereafter loses interest in this world. And then he said, now he's giving us advice. I hope you will choose the lasting over the passing. That which lasts, akhirah, next life, over which passing. Okay, this life is passing. And this is recorded by Imam Ahmed, the Sahih of Ibn Hibban, and the Mustadrak of Imam Hakim. Right? Another thing that Rasulullah ﷺ is indicating in this hadith is that the heart can only be dedicated to one thing at a time. It can only, that's how Allah made it. It can only be dedicated to one thing at a time. What is your heart dedicated to? What is your heart, like you have to really sit back and you have to say to yourself, like what is important to me? Like what's ultimately important to me? You're examining your attitude, you're examining your thoughts, you're examining your feelings, you're examining your actions, right? You're examining your interactions with others, and you're saying, why did I do that? Why did I say that? What's driving me? Like what's underneath that? What did I really want? I wanted the person to praise me, I wanted the person to, what did I really want? And then, if you want to do something about it, take the self to task. Take the self to task. I told you different stories. Some people would spend their money. Some people would have people follow them around and call them names so that they could overcome their anger. Right? Some people would, like when the nafs, which is one of your enemies, remember, the nafs makes a suggestion to you. The nafs makes a suggestion to you, and it says, don't get up for tahajjud. You punish it. You say, not only are we going to get up, we're getting up an hour early. Until eventually it gives that up. Like, okay, no. Right? And we know, the self whispers to us. Sometimes I make an intention. I'm going to fast. Right? And then, right before I fall asleep that night, before I'm supposed to fast, I can't wait till next week. Where did that come from? From my nafs. Right? They have what they want what they want. And you have to check them. How much time do I have, Abdullah?
Another 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. All right. Okay, another hadith. Anas bin Malik, again. And this is recorded by Imam at-Tirmidhi. He says, if someone has a strong hope for al-akhirah, the hereafter, the next life, and makes an effort to prepare for it, Allah will show him the beauty of it and take the love of this world out of his heart. All of his scattered efforts to achieve success in this world will be united in the single thought of preparing for the hereafter, and he will be satisfied. While, this is the contrast now, if someone only hopes and wishes for this world, his efforts are all in vain. Allah places a third eye in between his two eyes, an eye of insatiable ambition, and he is never content. Allah scatters his attention and his efforts to many objects of desire and does not offer him any divine gifts, but grants him only what he can get himself. Possessing only that, he feels very poor. This is deep stuff, man. This is really, really deep stuff. Here is Anas bin Malik, radiallahu anhu. He's giving you some serious, serious insight right now. He's telling you why, no matter how much money you have, it's not enough. It's not enough. No matter how much you get, it will never be enough. Okay? So let's talk about that for a second. Well, we don't have much time. So, okay, I'll stop right there. Is there any questions? I think that hadith is very clear.
Hawa, Hayat. You said Hawa means modesty.
No. Hawa is passion or delusion.
Okay, so then that person that is indulged in their Hawa, am I saying it right?
Yes.
At the end, he will have, it's like he's not showing any Hayat.
That's one way of looking at it. MashaAllah. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it.
You're the one that started it.
You know what I mean? That's one way of looking at it.
If you don't have
Yeah.
on the modesty, then there's
So
I
it doesn't.
don't know what any of that. You know what I mean? Like my mom used to say, like, "Dumat the pikash." You know what I mean? Like, take your tail off. You know what I mean? Stop being like haywan.
Right, like an animal, right?
Like,
You see, it's even every Muslim culture has that. Like, don't be like an animal. Allah has ennobled you. Okay, Allah has ennobled you, so rise up to the occasion. Rise up to the occasion. You have some animal qualities, but they have to be used in the right place at the right time in the right amount. You know what I mean? But they should not be riding you. Okay, Imam Ghazali talks about how the passions are like a wild horse, but it's inside of you. If you allow the horse to ride you, you're gonna just be destroyed. But what are you supposed to do with the horse?
ride it.
You ride it. You gain control over it, mastery, and you ride it. We're going left. We're going right. Stop. Right? We're going to park right here. All right? That's how you have to be. You have inside of you something like an animal. The question is, what type of animal do you have? Okay? Some of us are like mice and rats. We steal. Those are the characteristics of a mouse and a rat. You know, you might have a dream. Wallahi, I'm telling you the truth. You might have a dream and you see a person, Allah let you see his real characteristic.
You know it's the person, but in the dream he looks like a dog. And you understand. Right? Some of us, we're like pigs. Humanity, I'm talking about. Humanity. Inshallah, there's no pigs in this room. But some of us, we're like pigs. The pig has no discretion about what it eats or who it mates with. No discretion. No discretion. Sometimes dogs can be like that too. No discretion. So this is what the passion will drive you to be like an animal. The worst kind of animal. Imam Ghazali is talking about the fitra. It's like a horse, right? We all have that uncontrollable, sometimes, you see in kids when they throw temper tantrums, but eventually they're supposed to reach an age where they have control over that. If they're guided properly, they're taught properly, they get control over it. So anyway, what you said, yes, right? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you have no shame, if you have no modesty, then do as you like. Right? Then do as you like. But if you have control over your nafs, you won't do as you like. You bring it into accordance with divine guidance. So mashallah, that was a good insight. Anyone else? Abdullah said I only have 1 minute left. Okay. I'm going to give him the mic. سبحان الله وبحمده نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك